wish we could add more music because your music is definitely very beautiful. Good morning and Happy New Year to you all. I most sincerely consider it an honor and a privilege to be invited to speak to you today. As an activist for equality and social justice now for over 55 years, I've had good plastic surgeons. I know the history of the Jewish people, especially of the Reform Jewish movement, which has been a trailblazer for well over a half a century for LGBT equality, since the 1960s. For me to be with you on this high holy holiday is especially special because today is also Mexican Independence Day and the start of Hispanic Heritage Month for my Latino community. And as someone who knew and worked with the late Cesar Chavez, I know the long history of your support of the Latino civil rights movement and the support of our undocumented people and asylum seekers. Today also marks the 60th anniversary of the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Alabama. They killed 4 little girls and helped spark the Black Civil Rights Movement that the Jewish community not only strongly supported, but were involved with from day one. Yes, 60 years ago, and now still, the radical extreme right movement is trying to erase Black history and suppress the Black vote. Yes, these are indeed challenging and yes, dark times for our nation, especially for the Jewish community, as hate crimes and anti-Semitism is not only at an all-time high in America, but around the world. I know that to this day, I know you can still hear and remember the chants of young men in the South, in the streets, chanting only a few years ago, Jews will not replace us. And these same Americans support the now over 700 anti-LGBTQ bills that have been introduced in state houses around this nation. The rise of hate crimes against the Asia Pacific Islander communities and Latino communities are not just a coincidence. And the campaigns to stop a woman's right to control her own body aren't either. For it seems that our nation is returning to the days of Joe McCarthy and Anita Bryant. This indeed is a defining moment for our nation. Will we continue to move forward or go backwards? I remember those days when I was not only openly called a queer, a faggot, and a deviant, but a wetback, a greaser, a spit. I remember those dark years of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. Gay and lesbians in California, by just the stroke of a pen in the signature of their parents or a judge, were sent to mental hospitals and subjected to electric shock treatment and lobotomies, not until 1976, when homosexuality was finally made legal in California. I remember living in San Diego in the 1970s when Jews could not buy a house in La Jolla, when my Latino and gay communities were also subjected to discrimination and hate. As my friend, the late Reverend George Walker Smith said, San Diego was the Mississippi of the West Coast. And indeed it was. I've had the honor of serving and advising the last 8 mayors of San Diego as currently a city and county commissioner. I can tell you that hate is on the rise not only across this nation, but in San Diego. And the main targets are the Jewish community, the people of color, and the LGBT community. After spending over 30 years trying to get the San Diego County Human Relationship reinstated, to recently hear some of my fellow commissioners give remarks calling transgender and the LGBT people abominations before God, and hearing two others commissioners attack the Jewish people in Israel, it has left a permanent scar on my soul. This coming Tuesday is the meeting of the Human Relations Commission. It will be the most important since its reinstatement. And I hope you will be there to support my motions for the commission to take a strong stand against anti-Semitism and homophobia in San Diego County, and to appoint Rabbi Marcus to this commission. My message to you today is we are all in this together and must start building stronger relationships and bridges to our communities. If we stand together, love and deed will win over hate. In closing, I must take this time to thank and acknowledge many of my longtime family and friends in the Jewish community. Bruce Abrams, my dearest brother. Harvey Milk, Rabbi Lori Kosky, who's right here, who has taught me so much, as has author Lynn Faderman and Phyllis, Lori Black, and I'm so glad to see her today, Susan Davis. Susan Davis, since her days on the school board, assembly, and Congress, has stood for all San Diegans. And I'm honored to call you my friend, Susan. Robin Tyler, Aaron Borbay, the first gay Jewish president of this temple, the late Bill Collender and Craig Silverman, Bevan Duffy, Bonnie DeManis, Buster Box, Jen Campbell, Stuart Mill, Kevin Beiser, who was an outstanding member of the school board and protected all of our children, and so many others. I want to especially acknowledge former Mayor Susan Golding, whose leadership role in those dark early years of AIDS made such a difference. She established the first regional task force on AIDS, helped bring the International AIDS Quilt to San Diego, established the first AIDS Memorial Task Force that we will finally dedicate next year in honor of over 9,000 San Diegans who have died of AIDS. Mayor Golding was a beacon of light in these early dark days of AIDS. I want to acknowledge and thank Rabbi Lawson, who is here, in this temple for every week holding food drives for people living with AIDS. And Rabbi Lawson also, almost everywhere he went, would wear a Jewish AIDS ribbon of awareness. As a co-founder of San Diego Pride in 1974, I want to thank this temple for being the first to march in our annual Pride Parade. And finally, I want to say it was my honor to introduce and get both the City and Human Relations Commissions to pass a resolution calling for a permanent Holocaust museum to be established in San Diego County. Yesterday, I had lunch with my son, Mayor Todd Gloria, who calls me Mommy Dearest. And he asked me to wish you all a most happy new year. And I am proud today that you are all the first to hear that last night, Todd Gloria, the 37th mayor of San Diego, told me to tell all of you that he is committed to find a permanent home for Ruth Remembers Us, the Holocaust exhibit that is now at the Rancho San Diego Library. And now I would like to call forth Rabbi Marcus. I always believe putting my money where my mouth is. So in your name, the International Court Council, which is the oldest LGBT organization in the world, to present this check, as I said, in your name of $1,000 to the ADL. And also to present you our highest honor. This is a mosaic, Governor recently announced it's going to be put into the California Hall of Fame. And it is the highest honor of our organization, it's the International Order of Mosaic One. She was quite a fabulous drag queen also. As you can tell, I'm not in drag, but I also don't like to call attention to myself. In closing, it has been said that only when you have walked through the darkest, deepest valley will you know how magnificent the view is on the highest mountain. Thank you, Temple Emmanuel, for today's view from such a high mountain. Know that you will always have a friend and an ally in this old queen named Nicole Ramirez. Thank you.